So we have a few rules, and one of them is that most stocks are fairly valued. And that's sort of a take on what people call the efficient market hypothesis, which is that stocks are efficiently priced. All market stocks in the stock market are efficiently priced because there's so many observers looking at stocks that they're always reasonably priced. And I don't know that that's true. I think most people disagree with the efficient market hypothesis. But my take on it is that most stocks are actually fairly valued. Most stocks. I think that for every 10 stocks you look at, 8 of them will be fairly valued. Maybe one will be overvalued and one will be undervalued. Concentration, diversification. This is something we kind of got cut off last time. A lot of people debate, it's been a debate that's gone on for decades, if not centuries, is how many stocks are optimal in a portfolio. Number of stocks. Another sort of key question is turnover. Should you be buying and selling every day? Or every year, or how often? How often? Maybe I can write that in here somewhere. Turnover. We did universe somewhere else. Turnover and rate of return. We'll talk about that shortly. So anyway, with respect to the number of stocks, it's my opinion that you want as many as possible. And that's just a sort of a mathematical concept. Now, the problem with this hypothesis is that we're only human. And ideally, we'd study thousands of stocks and pick as many as we can to get diversification. We assume that there's going to be some error in our ways. So let's say there's 1,000 stocks. And again, according to my principle, let's say 800 will be fairly valued, so we're not going to look at those 800. There's going to be 200 that are not fairly valued, 100 will be longs, and 100 will be shorts. But we're not perfect, we're human, so we know that we're going to get some of these wrong. We're going to be long. There's a famous hedge fund manager right now his biggest long is, I think, called Valiant, and he's been wrong. He's long and wrong. Valiant has gone down a lot. But it's his biggest long. And he's also had a short that's gone up quite a bit. I think it's called Herbalife. I don't know a lot about the situation, but I think that's what's happening. And so in any event, sometimes you get it wrong. And so there's some percentage chance that you will get it wrong. And that's why I think you want to minimize that percentage chance impacting you. For instance, if the percentage chance that you're going to get something wrong is 60-40, which is pretty good. 60% of the time you're going to be right, 40% you're going to lose and be wrong, win-loss. Well, if you have 6 stocks that you're long, do you know what the probability is that even though you're pretty good because you're 60-40, what is the chance that you will get it wrong several times in a row? In fact, what is the chance that you'll get all 6 stocks wrong? I think it's 0.4 to the 6th power, if I'm not mistaken. And that's not an impossibly small number. It's pretty small. It's less than 1% chance. But that means that you'd get every single one of them wrong. And I think that's somewhat intolerable given that you have 60% chance. Now let's say, and remember, for every one you get wrong, you kind of cancel out one that you got right. So all you need to do to mess up your portfolio is have 4 winners, or let's say 3 winners and 3 losers, and you make no money. So at best, 4 winners and 2 losers is sort of is in fact quite possible. In fact, it's sort of almost likely. In fact, I think if you do the math right, there's a good chance. I'm not doing my statistics very well here, but there's a good chance. There's definitely a good chance that you're going to have a lot of things wrong. So you want to maximize the kind of spread by maximizing the number of stocks in your long portfolio. And I'll do the math someday. I sort of conjured this idea on the fly. So let me go back and do the math on that whole thing. So in any event, you definitely want to have as many stocks as possible. The problem is most people are, this is a technical term you may not be familiar with, lazy. Most people don't want to look at 1,000 stocks. Most people don't want to spend their weekends looking at stocks, their nights looking at stocks. Most people want to sit there and have a couple stocks, and they don't want to research them day and night, and that's part of being a fund manager. There are many, in fact, most fund managers, I'd say, work very hard, but there are plenty that don't, and there are plenty that think they work hard and they don't as well. So I think that there's, kind of this complacency and laziness that permeates the industry, most industries. That's why the people that work the hardest seem to do the best. So anyway, having 100 great long ideas and 100 great short ideas is a lot of work, but it's not impossible if you have a decent-sized team. Now, having said that, there's some theory that when you concentrate your bets, you have a better chance of making more money, and I'm not sure that's true. In fact, some of the highest returning funds are not concentrated at all. A good example from history were two hedge funds called Renaissance. Renaissance is still in business. And the other one is called Steinhardt. And these funds were notoriously diversified, and they made a lot of money. They'd have literally 100 to 1,000 positions at any given time. Then there's concentrated funds that have done very well as well. Concentrated funds. And I don't know if I can give a few examples, but Buffett's early days, he was concentrated. He's no longer very concentrated. But Buffett's early portfolios were very concentrated. There's a mutual fund called Sequoia, which is very concentrated and has done very well. So there's plenty of people that have made money on both and lost money on both. You can be diversified and lose money as well. It's harder. It definitely is harder. And you can certainly be concentrated on one or two positions and get lucky and make money for a short period of time. So in any event, I believe in diversification with the understanding that there's a natural limitation to how much work one person or one team of people can do. So there's a lot of debates on that, and we'll talk about that more and more over time. One of the things that you have to understand about investing that many people don't is you don't have to invest if you don't have good investment ideas. And I think this is actually what's wrong with hedge funds and mutual funds and other types of funds, that no one forces you to make a bet, or at least they shouldn't. Some investors and investment managers feel like they're forced. They actually feel like they have to come up with great new stock ideas all the time. And sometimes there just aren't any. And you don't lose anything by not betting. And there's a lot of great investors like Buffett and like Seth Klarman and others who have done very well by just kind of waiting. So turnover, how fast should you change the stocks in your portfolio? This is a great question. I get this question a lot. People say, how often do you want to hold a stock for? And I say, for as little time as possible. Why is that? Well, it's the sort of opportunity cost of money concept. If I buy a stock for $10 and I think it's worth $20, they say, well, how long do you want to hold that stock for? And the answer is, as little as possible. As fast as I can get a return, the better. If this is going to take 5 years, I can do the rate of return on that. Let's see, 5 years minus 10 plus 20. That's a 15% return. That's pretty good. If it's going to take 10 years, well, that's a 7% return. That's not that exciting. What if it took 1 year? Well, that's a 100% return, right? How about half a year? Half a year would be better. That's a 300% rate of return. Now note, I'm not making 300%. This is a 100% return. But if I'm making it in 6 months, and this is a 300% so-called IRR, internal rate of return. And that's an important concept that we're going to go to. Internal rate of return. And this is a really interesting concept. So let's say for the long term, I think it's going to go from 10 to 20, and it's going to take 2 years. 2 years. Let me do this math again. Now let's say that's a 41% rate of return, which would be amongst the best fund managers of all time. I like my stocks when they perform that way. But let's say I bought the stock at 10, and it was $12. It was $12 2 weeks later. It was 52 weeks in a year, right? So that's 0.038 years later. 0.038 of a year later. 2 weeks later. Right? 2 weeks later. What's my rate of return? It's actually 12,000%. It's 12,000%. Now, there's never been a hedge fund that's made 12,000%. But the point is that I'd much rather buy and sell a stock in 2 weeks and make 20%. Let's see, the IRR is 20%, is 12,000%. But the actual cash return, we'll call it, is only 20%. I'd much rather get this than that. Does anyone know why? The answer is not because the IRR is higher. What is it? What? But why exactly? And there is no great method for this. Some of it is, I think, pretty random. It's hard to know if a stock's going to go up in 2 weeks or 2 years.